matter is ready in terms of our discussions of the 9th of December. There was never any intention in terms of this to say the investigation or prosecution is closed.
What were you referring to when you say the matter is closed?
The discussion about this Inspector General issue.
You refer to this matter is closed.
Yes.
And the decision that you say stands, what decision is that?
The decision is the decision of the 9th of December, 2011.
To continue to provisionally withdraw the prosecution, investigate further, and then place the matter on the roll when ready.
Once all that is done, once the matter is ready, the matter must be placed on the roll.
Fine. Then in 2014, there was another incident that you were criticized about, and that was that Justice Yaqub had been appointed to do a fact-finding mission, I'm not sure what you would call it exactly, to hold a fact-finding hearing relating to certain instances relating to the National Prosecuting Authority. You recall that?
Yes, I do, Chairperson.
And a number of the witnesses were extremely critical of you in saying that you refused to cooperate, and that they saw that as an extreme criticism of yourself. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Now, can I take you to the first document in a little bundle we handed out this morning, ma'am? It's got the National Prosecuting Authority head note, and it's dated the 27th of August 2014, and it's addressed to yourself. Do you see that document?
Yes, I see that, Chairperson.
Who is this letter from?
This letter is from a lady called Lizelle Potgieter. She was the administrator, according to this letter, for the fact-finding committee.
The fact-finding committee, and that's the fact-finding committee of Justice Yaqub.
Quite correct, Chairperson.
Mr. Mkhwebi, I know that after lunch we...
Sorry, Chairperson, sorry.
To dip.
So in the first paragraph, perhaps we should just read it in. Dear Mr. Mkhwebi, you are of course aware that Justice Yaqub and Mr. Kenny Manyangi have been asked by the National Director of Prosecution to conduct an evidence-gathering exercise in relation to certain occurrences within the National Prosecuting Authority. Justice Yaqub and Mr. Manyangi understand that the terms of the reference were circulated to all senior people at the National Prosecuting Authority, but can be provided to you should you wish. I've been appointed to help Justice Yaqub and Mr. Manyangi administratively and otherwise in the course of their work. They've asked me to write to you and say that, 1, they have no power to compel anyone to give any evidence before them, nor are they in a position to arrogate any such powers. They would very much like to engage with you in your professional capacity to receive advice and information on the issues that have to be dealt with. They understand that the circumstances might make it difficult for you to participate in the exercise. Now, could we just stop at the end of those 3 paragraphs and explain to the panel why it would be difficult for you to possibly, why they believe already themselves that it may be difficult for you to cooperate in the circumstances?
Thank you, Chairperson. The problem at that point in time, I was already advised by the NPA through Mr. Willie Hofmeyer that the NPA has decided that I am going to be prosecuted for or in relation to my decision, not in relation to the Mdluli decision. So by that time, I was already a suspect. I was even invited already to make representations to the national director why I should not be prosecuted. So that is the context. And if I may just expand a little bit on this. We knew that Justice Yakub was going to be appointed to do an investigation in the NPA in relation to what was regarded as leaks, because there were many leaks at that time in the NPA. Every day you read about a story of the NPA about this, Mokgoro is going to be arrested, so-and-so is going to be charged, and all those things. Around about August, we attended a conference, rather a meeting in Emperor's Palace. This issue about the terms, the investigation of Justice Yakub was raised. And rumors were already starting that Justice Yakub is not actually coming to investigate the leaks. He is coming to investigate us for the purposes of the criminal prosecution. And then we raised that objection. Many of us raised that objection to say it can be correct, because by that time of that meeting, I was already an accused person, because I was already informed by the NPA that the NPA has taken a decision to charge me criminally for my failure to prosecute, or rather not to withdraw the charges against Mdluli. And we were assured at that point in time by then National Director that, well, I think it will be important that Judge Yakub be advised that he must rather not go to that area in relation to the current prosecution process that the NPA has actually undertaken to do. But strange enough, that meeting, I think it was around about the 18th or 19th of August, 2014. I started getting information that in fact the terms of Justice Yakub were not actually amended to focus only on the so-called media leaks, but his investigation was wide enough to investigate the conduct of those that were suspected of certain wrongs, like myself, for failing to prosecute Mdluli. So basically that was the context why I felt it would not be in my interest to participate in an inquiry where I am already an accused person. To the extent I responded to this letter to say, in view of the fact that I'm already an accused person, it will not be, I don't find it will be in my interest for me to participate. So I refused, in inverted commas, to participate in that inquiry based on that fact, more especially that I was an accused person already.
Advocate Maripi, can I take you to the 16th page in that same bundle? They're not paginated. It would be the 5th flag document. It's a letter dated the 23rd of June 2014 from the Office of the National Director of Public Prosecutions.
5th.
It's from Mr. Hofmeyer, yes.
Oh.
Stated that 23rd of June 2014. Okay. You'll recall the evidence that Mr. Hofmeyer gave that he didn't have anything to do with your prosecution. But here's a letter dated the 23rd of June 2014, which says, in terms of Section 23(1) of the National Prosecuting Authority Act, I have been duly authorized by Mr. Nksana, the National Director of Public Prosecution, to exercise or perform any of his powers, duties, and functions pertaining to this matter. Following a decision made by Advocate Chaki, the Director of Public Prosecutions, declining to prosecute in Silverton CAS, the complainant, Mr. N. Ngubi Kubi made representations to the National Director to review the decision. As the accused person in the matter, you are hereby invited to make representations as envisaged in the aforementioned section. You are requested to provide your response on or before Thursday, 26 June 2014 at 1600 to write a year of. And it's written to you by W.A. Hofmeyer, Deputy National Director of Public Prosecutions. Do you know this letter?
Yes, I received that letter.
Did you respond to it?
I responded more especially when it came to making that I have no representations to make in this matter.
Then, if you go back one page in that little bundle, you'll find another document dated 24 July 2014. Where Mr. Hofmeyer is writing again, and he says, I refer to my letter dated 23 June 2014 and the subsequent emails regarding this matter. You are hereby informed that a decision was made to institute prosecution against you. Due process will now follow, and you will be informed in due course of the proceedings, signed by Mr. Hofmeyer.
I do recall I did receive this letter, Chairperson.
And these are the circumstances that were both anticipated in the letter at page 1 of the bundle, the letter of the 27th of August from Lizelle Potgieter of the fact-finding committee, that might make it difficult for you to give evidence at the committee fact-finding hearings.
I can only assume, Chairperson.
And this is the prosecution also that you're referring to when you were talking in answer to an earlier question.
That is correct, Chairperson.
So you exercised your right not to give evidence as alluded to already in this letter, and what were the consequences of that decision?
If you notice, the letter of Lizelle Potgieter is dated the 27th of August 2019. I think it must have been a day, yes, it must have been a day thereafter when I received a directive from then Mr. Ngasana to say that I must provide documentation to the fact-finding committee, and I responded that I have no documentation to provide that I'm aware of to the fact-finding committee, and I reminded him of the decision of the Emperor's Palace meeting, and I said I don't have any information to provide. That was it must have been the next day after this letter when I spoke to Ngasana. I communicated to us by email when I did that. The next day, the 29th exactly, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, my office was raided. Every document, every docket, my laptop, and everything else was removed from the office. When I asked what is the reason was that I refused to participate in the fact-finding in the fact-finding committee. In my office, I had reports on various cases. I had dockets of matters that came to my attention which required attention, cases that were the subject of serious allegations that needed to be investigated against a number of people. All that information, all those documents were taken and removed. That was one of the traumatic days in my life. And then as they were removing these documents, I decided to leave the office because I just could not understand what was happening. Because they would say the instruction is that you refuse to cooperate with the commission, with the committee. Then I decided to go home and pray. I went home, I prayed. And then I came back. The office was clean. There was not even a pin. And my safe, which had secret, top secret documents in relation to these matters, was not opened because the keys were with me. I thought I was going to take those documents because the next day I was supposed to go to a management meeting of the SCCU in Durban. So I had to go to Durban without anything in my hands because I did not have a laptop, I did not have documents, preparations for the meeting. So I went to Durban.
Sorry, Advocate Mokgoro, before you get to Durban, just to explain the extent of the what you called a raid. What was everything taken? What happened to the items in your desk drawers, in your cupboards, in the boxes on the floors?
There was not, as I'm saying, there was not even a pin in my office. I understand, I was told later that all those documents were taken to the office of Mr. Hofmeyer. Mr. Hofmeyer was still the head of IFU. He still had the investigators under his unit. So those documents were going to be used were going to be given to the investigators who were going to go through them, to go through my laptop and go through everything to find if there's any evidence that they wanted. I don't know what evidence they wanted. Just quickly, I went to Durban. I came back the next Monday. When I came, I thought I was going to, at least I still have the key to the safe. At least I'm going to safeguard at least to those documents that were in the safe. But when I came, my safe was sealed. So I could not even use the key. It was a Friday when I came back. And well, there's nothing I could do because I could not cut that thing. So I went home. On Monday, when I came back, I noticed that they used a grinder to open the safe. All those documents were taken. Sensitive documents in relation to ongoing investigations and all that was taken completely. So I also heard that those documents were given to those investigators under Mr. Hofmeyer. Just going forward as to what happened to those documents, I do not know. But later on, after Mr. Ngasana left, sometime in June 2015, after Mr. Advocate Abrams was the acting NDP, was the new NDPP at the time, I tried to follow up what happened to my documents. At some point in time, I received information that the storage where those documents were kept, because it's only those investigators who had the storage space, because those buildings were used by the DSO. We had secure storage places where there's cameras inside and outside, cameras in the passages. There were also securities, but conveniently, on the day the documents got missing, they got missing. The cameras were not working. Conveniently, when the documents got lost, the security was not in his position or her position. So the documents that were removed from my office, I have not been accounted for. As I'm saying, they related to very sensitive investigations in respect of a number of serious corruption cases in the private sector, cases that we were supposed to follow up. So nothing up. I understand that I don't know what, because Mr. Abrams says I understand was going to do an investigation. I don't know what happened to that investigation. The fact of the matter, those documents were all missing, and I had to start from the scratch in 2015 to build in new because all the files, correspondence files, dockets and everything, there was nothing.
And they are still missing?
They are still missing.
And the cameras were there?
The cameras were there, but they were not, we were told that by that time they were not working. Security was supposed to be there, but at that time he or she was not there. Documents are still missing up to this point in time.
Fine. So, the criminal charges that were instituted against you following the correspondence by Mr. Hofmeyer, was there or were there criminal prosecutions instituted against you?
Yes, I received a summons to appear in court, Pretoria Magistrate Court, on the 25th of September 2015. Indeed, I appeared in court. The matter was postponed for the first time for further investigation to December. And then it was postponed to the 13th of January the following year. Sorry, I think I've got my chronology wrong. This is 2014.
Yes.
I'm saying 2014. I appeared in court in 2014, September, not 2015. Sorry, Chairperson, I got my chronology wrong. 25 September, I appeared in court at the Magistrate Court, Pretoria, being charged for defeating the ends of justice in relation to my failure to prosecute Mluli. Then the case was postponed to the to December, I can't remember, but first week of December for further investigations. Then I appeared on the 1st of December. The case was postponed to the 13th of January 2015 for further investigations. Then when I appeared on the 13th of January, the NPA, represented by the prosecutor, indicated that the investigations are finalized. We are going to set as a trial date was set for the 13th to the 20th, from the 13th to the 17th of April 2015. But the interesting thing, for the purposes of preparation of the trial, our lawyers requested the disclosure of the docket as is normal procedure when an accused person is to be. We battled to get that information. We could not get the docket of that prosecution, could not be disclosed to us. Until the date of the trial, and then we went to court on the first day, which was a Monday, the 13th of April 2015. Now, when the matter was called upon by the prosecutor, he called the matter and said he's applying for a postponement. And the question from the magistrate was, why the postponement? The NPA is no longer sure whether it has got a case against Mokgoro now. It's recorded in that because now they want to get the opinion of counsel to advise them whether they have got a case against Mokgoro. The magistrate was very angry because he said, how can the NPA outsource its responsibility? Because in any event, whatever opinion you are going to get from counsel is still your decision. In any event, you have taken a decision long time ago that there is a case against Mokgoro, long time in 2014. The prosecutor was requested to talk to the NPA, and I understand, according to him, he spoke to Mr. Vili Hofmeyer, and then he came back to say he's applying for the case to be withdrawn. But the magistrate made a ruling that the case will not be withdrawn, but the case will be struck off roll in terms of Section 342A of the Criminal Procedure Act. That was the end of those proceedings.
And no one has attempted to reinstate the charges or bring the matter?
No one has attempted to reinstate the charges.
Perhaps you could just explain to the panel, as I understand it, when it struck off the roll in terms of that section by a magistrate, the prosecutor must get the written authorization of the National Director of Public Prosecutions before that prosecution can be reinstated.
Yes, that is actually of the Director of Public Prosecutions.
Of the Director of Public
That is the essence of that section. In a sense, it's very difficult to reinstate a case like that once that order by the magistrate has been made.
So whilst it may still possibly be capable of being done, you'll have to show a very sound basis for a further prosecution.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Then, Advocate Mokgoro, I think there's just one last aspect we need to deal with, and that is, as you're aware, and as we've been made aware of, Mr. Grizi gave evidence at the Commission of State Capture about certain purported activities, and he in particular referred to yourself and Advocate Jiba in that regard. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And in essence, we've been supplied with the evidence that he gave, and I know you do wish to place in the public domain your version, since a lot has been made of this.
Absolutely.
But apparently, Mr. Grizi has indicated that through the previous National Commissioner of Correctional Services, Mr. Mti, he received documents from the National Prosecuting Authority. Are you aware of this allegation?
I'm aware of that allegation by Mr. Agrizi.
And the allegation goes further that the manner in which Mr. Mti purportedly obtained these documents was by the payment of incentives or bribes to yourself, Advocate Jiba, and one Jackie Lupinka.
Yes, I'm aware of those allegations.
And apparently it was on the basis of 100,000 to Advocate Jiba, 20,000 rand to Ms. Lupinka, and 10,000 rand to yourself.
Yes, I heard that I'm the cheapest of all.
So we all know Advocate Jiba is. Who is Jackie Lupinka?
Jackie Lepinka is a person who used to work in the office of the National Director of Public Prosecutions. I know that when I came to a head office in 2011, she was in the office of, or even before, she was in the office of Mr. Mshe, and I later knew that she was in the office of Mr. Simelan. She has been in that office as far as I know.
And what was the position in the National Director's office?
She's got a fancy title, I don't know, Executive Support National Director, Executive Support National Director. I think it's a
Yes.
kind of a support function, but that's how she writes it in her.
In effect, she's sort of the office manager of the National Director.
In a sense, she's like a secretary in that office, basically.
And on further investigation, since certain allegations have been made, do you know whether she's got any relationship with Mr. Mti?
Chairperson, I did not know initially that she's got that relationship. If I may just jump from the investigations that I have done, for example, myself, for the first time to have anything to do with the Bosasa investigation was in October 2012. The first action in that matter for me to do was to receive a report from two deputy directors who were in my office, who were giving me a report about the fact that the Bosasa matter now has been presented and registered with the anti-corruption task team. So they gave me a copy of that presentation to the task team and the report, by the prosecutors to say this matter now is in the hands of the anti-corruption task team. It is going to be monitored there. That was my first, that was October 2012. And my second role happened also in October 2012 in relation to an aspect which Mr. Agrizi has also testified about, an aspect about the Section 205 subpoenas. because some of the people connected with that investigations were required to appear before the magistrate to be examined by the prosecutor in relation to certain transactions that were involved in that connected Bosasa. So they challenged that subpoena, and the prosecutor and the regional head, the acting regional head at that time, wrote a memo to my office to suggest that they do not believe that Uagrizi should be directing, or I should agree, because it was sort of a representations to me to say I must intervene in that section 205 subpoena and withdraw it. Their correspondence, which is in the documents, was to the effect that it will be wrong for me to do that. The prosecutor involved in the case wrote that motivation, and also the regional head of SCCU Pretoria also wrote that motivation, that it will be wrong. Then I looked into the matter, and then I wrote a letter, and I agreed that it will be inappropriate for the NPA to withdraw the subpoena, because the subpoena is like a court order. So if those people wanted that subpoena to be set aside, their only option is to take the matter to court and review the subpoena. I wrote to their lawyers, Eversheds, in particular Mr. Bubic, to say their representations cannot be accepted. Their only course of action is to approach the court of law to have the subpoena set aside. Okay. Otherwise, we cannot, as the NPA, entertain their request.
Okay. Advocate Mokgoro, I don't think we need to go through each and every of these things blow by blow, but I will take you through certain of the aspects, I think, just to highlight. We prepared a bundle of documents which was given to the evidence leaders last week. It consists of some 401 pages of relevant documentation relating to the Bosasa matter, and it has been put on the Dropbox as far as I know. The internet's very bad here, so I don't know where in the Dropbox it is, but I'm not going to go through the whole matter.
And how do those documents relate to the affidavit?
I will deal with them now briefly, Madam Chair. The first document that you referred to is this document, the documents which form pages 46 to 92 of the bundle, and what they consist of are these representations by people who were alleging to be laundering money on behalf of Bosasa, who asked that they be excused from attending the hearing in front of the magistrate, in terms of which they had to supply documents to the investigating team, the police investigating team. That's what you were referring to.
That is what I'm referring to.
Yes.
As I'm speaking to.
And those representations, you got comments from the prosecutors, and they were referred to you, and you rejected their representations and said they had to go and appear.
I rejected their representations. Yes.
Okay. And then the documents marked 4, 5, and 6, 7, and 8 is to show during 2013, from January 2013 to April 2013, how you were following up on the Bosasa matter, how you were looking for reports and indications of what was happening with the matter in order to encourage the progression of the matter.
Absolutely.
And so it went on with all the number of these other documents are all on the same line. It shows how you are dealing with all of these reports, how you are encouraging further prosecution, how you're encouraging further investigation, and attempting to get not the Bosasa company, but also individuals who were connected there to prosecuted, like Mr. Gillingham, for instance.
Quite correct. If I may just give a little bit of explanation here. As early as 2013 January, that was the first formal briefing on Bosasa. it was then that we got an indication that the prosecutor in the matter was ready at least to prosecute some people within the Bosasa company, in particular Patrick Gillingham, to the extent we were promised the charge sheet by April 2013. And we put pressure on the prosecutor from January, all the following months, to say, when is the charge sheet going to be ready? And Mr. Agrizi was also one of the people that we were sure that there's ample evidence to be prosecuted by that time. So we followed that.
That's document 5 and 6, Madam Chair, in the bundle, starting at page 101 to page 106 that the witness has just referred to. Then he received a progress report on the 12th of February 2013.
Yes, we did.
And then a further report on the 25th of March 2013. And so it continued, as I've indicated. Now, I asked you about Jackie Lepinka.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if you finished your answer in connection with Mr. Mti, what the relationship was.
I was just going to go there to say, as we were busy preparing this charge sheet, the prosecutor was saying it's going to be ready by April. Fast forward towards August, July 2013, the prosecutor changed now to say she believed that we can prosecute these people for racketeering. Then in that meeting, which I recall, there was also Mr. Mozing, and I think Mr. Mzinyati was present in that meeting. We listened to the story about this racketeering. It became clear that there were problems with that racketeering, to the extent the prosecutor was given a pro forma, or rather a precedent to look into. Now, in that meeting, it was in that meeting, or it was after that meeting, I think it must have been early in July, August, when we're going to have a next briefing. The prosecutor, or in that briefing, I recall the prosecutor calling Advocate Jiba on the side, speaking to her about her concerns about certain individuals who are in this meeting. And she was not comfortable to proceed in the presence of those individuals. Then that individual was then excused from the meeting. Then there was a next briefing.
One individual or individuals?
One individual was excused from the meeting because she raised her concerns about her relationship with MT. But we could not understand because we thought she was being funny, because she does not say exactly what are the issues, to the extent we were, because she was supposed to produce a draft racketeering charges based on the previous discussions. She did not do that. We thought she was being obstinate. Then when there was going to be the next briefing sometime, I think between September 2013, she did not give us that document. And then we had to ask for explanation. Why did you not give us that document? And she did not attend the briefing. Why did you not attend the briefing? Instead of answering why she did not attend the briefing, it was for the first time that a disclosure was made in 2013 to say there are problems with this individual's relationship. She, in her response, why she did not attend the meeting, she attached documentation which proved that indeed there was a relationship between this individual and Mr. MT.
Advocate Mokgoro, I don't think we must beat around the bush. It's not a secret. Who is the individual you're talking about?
It's Ms. Jackie Lepinka. It's Ms. Jackie Lepinka.
And just without going into 1,000 bit of detail, what was her previous relationship with Mr. MT?
It was the first time to know, according to those documents, that she was in the private secretary, in the private office of Mr. MT, because there were documents which were correspondence between MT and somebody in the office of Mr. MT.
So what was discovered, in fact, was that Ms. Jackie Lepinka was Mr. Mt's private secretary when he was when she still worked for him Correctional Services.
She was at the correctional services working in the office of Mr. Mti. That's what we discovered at that point.
So they had a long-standing previous relationship before she was employed at National Prosecuting Authority.
That's correct, Chairperson.
So, sorry.
Just want to remind Advocate Rip about certain comments about leading, but we do things in a collegial fashion.
So, then you were talking about the prosecutor. The prosecutor was making complaints that she didn't feel safe
Yes.
about Jackie Lepinka's activities or involvement or presence in meetings.
That were her concerns. And after that, Jackie Lepinka, in the subsequent briefing, she was not part of those meetings.
So she was excluded from
She was
those
excluded
meetings.
since then, she was excluded from those meetings.
And in her role in the National Director of Public Prosecutions, what role did Ms. Lepinka play in the meetings? Why would she have been there in the first place?
Because she was the PA, she was the support staff, she would be taking minutes, she would be arranging minutes, she would be typing minutes and distributing programs for the minutes. She was the support staff. You know, I would understand that, that would be a reason why she would be in the meetings.
And a lot of the correspondence relating to many of these things also went through offices. Did she receive emails on behalf of the National Director
Yes,
and the like?
because we did not send documents directly to the acting National Director. We would send documents to her office for her to, if she requires information, then it would be her, or it will be sent to the PA or to Jackie Lepinka for her to give to the acting National Director.
Okay, and an example of that would be document number 18 in the bundle, Madam Chair. It's at page 162 of the bundle. And if I can take you to page 162 of the bundle. Can you find that page? 162 of bundle. I'm not sure what bundle it's in.
Sorry, it's J179.
Thank you, ma'am. In the Dropbox reference J179. Have you got that?
Yes.
Do you see it?
Yes,
It was
I see
printed from your computer because you see it says Lawrence S. Marebi at the top.
Yes.
It's an email that was addressed to Jackie Lepinka, copied to Fasizwa Ndiku, and the subject was proposed jacaranding.
Yes. That document was in response to that request that she must produce a draft racketeering charge sheet. At some point in time, she did. I think it was sent from the office of her regional head to me. And then once I received that document, then I emailed it to the office of the National Director, Acting National Director, through the office of Jackie Lepinka. That's why it is addressed to Jackie Lepinka.
And that was normal. That's what you normally did.
Because that is how we used to deal. Every document from my office, either I send it directly myself to Jackie or my PA would send documents to Jackie so that I understand that she was in charge of, she should be receiving these documents. So that's why on this day, I directed this document to her office because it was following a request in the previous meeting. So I directed that document to Ms. Jackie Lepinka.
For instance, if you go on to page 245 of that same bundle, you'll find another email from, this one from Jackie Lepinka herself, dated the 28th of August 2013. Are the pages the same in the bundle, in the Dropbox? Not 245. It's from Jackie Lepinka, dated the 20th. It's to yourself, and then it's CC to Anthony Mosing, Sibungili Mzinyati, Toku Majakwena, Palesa, Matsi, and says, Dear Advocate Mokgoro, the above matter refers from the various reports and briefings as well as the latest draft racketeering documentation. The above matter from Advocate M. de Kok, the ANDPP has identified serious shortcomings as far as the relating to organized crime / POCA. She has therefore directed the above official be afforded proper training accordingly. A meeting has been scheduled for Wednesday, 11th of September from 10:30 with the ANDPP to discuss BSOS and way forward, presentation on the Pistorius case as well as a briefing on the yield case. And then she makes another comment. So it's clear, you'll agree that here she's conveying messages from the Acting National Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions to all the individuals mentioned in the email. She's like the conduit.
Absolutely. This follows from the meeting of the first discussion of the draft racketeering chat sheet, where all these individuals, like your Anthony Mosing, Sibongile Mzinyati, and Toko, were present. And in that meeting, it was discovered that at least because racketeering is not a very known field, we need training. To the extent, if you see that there's a mention of, in the last paragraph, Project Yield. When we discussed the training need, it was identified that Advocate Gerinel could be requested to come to the meeting so that she can help us to design a training program on racketeering based on the best practice of this project called Yield Projects, which one we dealt with as part of the DSO.
Yeah, I'm not interested in the content, just the way of communicating.
Oh, yes, that's fine.
Okay, could you go to page 269? And this is now getting to some of your early evidence. This is a letter from Advocate de Kok to Advocate Mokgatle, dated the 17th of September. And this is where you said she refused to attend a meeting or give information, and she's now responding to this.
That is correct.
And you'll see there's dated 17 September 2013. And if you go over the page, she is busy recording what happened. She says, earlier today I received an email message. Then you go over to page 270. And there you can see the email communication received from Advocate Jiba's dated Thursday, 12 September. Advocate Jiba wrote that, Jackie, please write to Advocate Mokgoro and request a written explanation on the failure of Advocate de Kok to attend a meeting today. He must explain how he intends dealing with this matter. I view this very seriously. Regards, Advocate N. Jiba. So then the letter would have come from
Absolutely.
Jackie.
Absolutely.
So now we are in the letter where Mareike de Kok is busy explaining herself. And if you go to page 271, in paragraph 4.2 at page 271, this is what you were referring to earlier. Ms. Jackie Lepinka, the Manager, Executive Support is the fancy title you were referring to the NDPP, previously worked for the Department of Correctional Services. Her employment with the Department of Correctional Services corresponds with the critical period of the Busasa investigation, namely March 2004 until December 2006. Ms. Jackie Lepinka was employed with the department in a position similar to current position with the National Prosecuting Authority. Then over the page, during the period that Ms. Lepinka was employed with the Department of Correctional Services, she worked in the Office of the National Commissioner. The National Commissioner, Mr. Linda Morris Mti, is a suspect in the Busata investigation. Then she deals with some of the other documents. She says both Mr. Mti and Mr. Gillingman had interactions with Ms. Lepinka. And she refers to some. 4.4, Ms. Lepinka had access to documents addressed to Mr. Mti and communications between him and others, including Patrick O'Connell Gillingham. So basically what she's saying here, she sets out why she feels she doesn't want to disclose any further information where Ms. Lipinka is involved.
Yes, that was her response to why she could not attend that briefing, which was set, I think, for the 11th of September, yes.
And then, as a result of that, Advocate Jiba removed Ms. Lipinka from any further attendance in these matters.
Ms. Lipinka was not again, or did not again become part of any briefings relating to Bosasa after that.
And then when the next National Director of Public Prosecutions, who came after Ms. Jiba's Advocate Jiba's acting stint, that was Advocate Semolani.
No. After Advocate Jiba, it was Mr. Ngasana in 2013, October to 2015.
Right.
During 2014, 2015, I in particular, my last involvement in the Bosasa matter was in October again, October 2013, when I realized that there's a problem with the prosecution team. They need some support. And in terms of the anti-corruption processes, we also have access to what is called the CARA funds, those funds that are being seized by the asset forfeiture, which we could use for various purposes in the investigation of crime. I wrote my last letter.
Sorry to interrupt, Edgar, but I don't want to go there. We don't need to go there. What I wanted to say is, what happened to Ms. Lipinka when Mr. Nsani became the National Director of Public Prosecutions? Did she still perform the same role? Was she still in that same office?
Subject to correction, I think she was removed from the NDPP office after Mr. Ngasana came. Subject to correction, I'm not so sure when, under what circumstances.
Okay, then lastly, and probably the most critical question relating to this, did you ever meet Mr. Mti? Do you know him at all? Have you got any personal relationships with him?
I know Mr. Mti as the accused in this Bosasa matter. I knew him as the Correctional Services DG at the time. Otherwise, besides that, I don't know him. I have never had any relationship with him of any nature whatsoever. I have no relationship with anybody who knows Mr. Mti or close to Mr. Mti.
Have you actually met Mr. Mti?
I have never met Mr. Mti at all.
And what do you say about the allegation that Mr. Grizi gave him 10,000 rand to pay to you for information?
I do not know what to say about that. What I can only say is that either that money was received by somebody for his or her own purposes, because it did not reach my, my account or myself.
Did you have any such arrangement with Mr. Mti or Mr. Grizi?
That would be, that would be tantamount to spitting into the grave of my departed parents and grandparents. I would never do that.
Madam Chair, that's the evidence in chief on behalf of Mr. Mokgoro.
Thank you, Mr. Rib.
Doing all the direct evidence first.
Come again? Of both.
So Advocates Jiba and Advocate Khwebi will be led in direct, and then we'll do the
Before we
cross.
start with cross-examination, is that an arrangement?
Yes.
Should have told us. You go.
Yes, could we
The
ask for
break.
an adjournment? Now, our evidence is scheduled to be led tomorrow, and we would insist on leading that evidence tomorrow as per the schedule.
I did have a conversation with both my colleagues last week to say that we needed to fit in time for a reply, and that if we were finished at the time that Advocate Masuku should be ready to go. But Advocate Rip, you were
I can just speak on behalf of myself, but my recollection is that what was said is that Advocate Mokgoro was for today, Advocate Jibo was for tomorrow, but in the event that we didn't finish too late and there was still time available for Advocate Jibo to start the evidence today, then that was the suggestion, which obviously didn't affect me. But I definitely recall, in all fairness to the evidence leaders, that was the understanding, as I understood the understanding at the time. So I can confirm what was just said to you. I don't know, I can't speak for Advocate Jiba's people.
Can we start tomorrow? Can we start tomorrow at 9 a.m.?
We're happy to do that. 9 a.m. tomorrow.
9 a.m. tomorrow. Thank you. Can we adjourn until 9 o'clock tomorrow, when we will start with Advocate Jiba's leading evidence, and will be led by Mr. Masuku. 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Thank you so much, everybody.